decide that the time has come at a particular stage in their lives to reinvent themselves. And what triggers that kind of realization will change from individual to individual. Circumstances are often a factor. And I would say that it's wonderful we have one of the 10 examples in the book present with us today. Although the chapter does warn us that he is too modest, Mr. Jinsey, to talk very much about himself. So he hasn't told us in great detail. But the fact is, somebody who's doing well in the corporate world has chosen to go into what is essentially an NGO cause and has done it remarkably well, applying, I suspect, some of the management techniques and administrative abilities honed in the private sector to this work in SOS Children's Villages. And the truth is that I don't know whether he was put into his career because parents pushed him that way, or whether it just seemed the right thing to do. Sometimes being good at school is often a curse, because if you get certain kinds of marks, you feel obliged to follow and study the subjects that you've done well at. And in my case, since Rajeshwari mentioned that I too made a similar choice, I can't really say that, because I actually didn't do anything my parents wanted me to do at any stage. I used to have the inconvenient habit of coming first in science, and I hated the subject. I was just good at taking exams. So the moment streaming occurred, I opted for humanities, to the horror of my teachers. And my parents upbraided me, saying, "You come first in science throughout." And I said, "Yes, but I forget everything I've studied the day after the exam, because the subject means nothing to me." So I did humanities, and I did very well at school, and my parents said, "You must do economics, that's what you do with humanities, and go off and do an MBA." I said, "No, I'm going to do history, because economics doesn't interest me." So I did history. And at the end of that, I did take the entrance exams to the IIMs, and I got into both of them, only two in the country in those days. But I also applied for graduate studies in international politics, and I got a scholarship to go to the States. So I again went off to do that, rather than the career that I was supposed to have. And having done that, I joined the UN instead of coming back to the Foreign Service. A choice again dictated by the circumstances of the day. The emergency was a disillusioning moment for anybody contemplating government service. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I had a rather full career, but that's when then circumstances intervened, and that after my unsuccessful bid to take over the position of Secretary General, even though the victor, Ban Ki-moon, invited me to remain, I felt it would not be right to do so, that one can't cast one's shadow on a job one has tried to get and not got for good or bad reason. And so I decided instead to leave and move on. And it took me a while to take the plunge into politics, which I subsequently did. And I have to say that it has been a mix with mixed results, shall we say. So that you can't always assume that every mid-career change is as successful as Mr. Jinsey's. There are changes you make, and we have to see where those lead. But of course, life is an unfolding narrative. The story is never quite told until it is finished. And since we have no saying when it's finished, we keep trying to tell the story in an interesting way, as long as it's possible to tell it. So I think career choices can come because of circumstances, as in my case. It can come because of dissatisfaction, as in some other cases. It can come simply with disillusionment.